Welcome to Little Sewist Studio's Dozen Days of December. Throughout the next 12 days, we are going to showcase different tools and projects for little sewists to start their sewing journey. All of these will be great things that you can use to build a first-time sewing kit or use as stocking stuffers or little gifts throughout the year. They will be shown by our ambassadors, and they will share some of their ways that they use each tool, and we'll walk you through some of our ways of using them and some tips of why they're such great tools for little sewists. For the entire month of December, we also have our site 20% off all of our patterns. So once you've learned about these tools and you've gotten a few of them, you can put them in action and use them sewing one of our patterns or our projects to get you going. Now today, our very first tool is one of our absolute favorites, and most people would think sewing and they think of sewing pins. And sewing pins have their place and they're useful, but they can be a little dangerous for little hands where they're easily poked by them, and if we lose them on the floor, they can be dangerous, things like that. So instead of using traditional sewing pins, we recommend sewing clips. And there are brand name sewing clips called Wonder Clips, but there are also other clips that you can get in many different places in stores. And these are very handy because they just pinch together, open up, and then you can clip them onto your fabric. Now, they hold multiple pieces of fabric together really well, where sometimes the pins struggle to do that. And they're also great for other things like taking your pattern piece, putting it on top of your cut pattern piece, and then clipping those together. And then you'll know when you go to grab that piece of fabric which piece of the pattern it is, because that pattern piece is clipped on with your clip. Now to use them, it's really easy. You put your pointer finger on the colored side, your thumb on the white side, and pinch, and it opens it up like an alligator. Now, one other thing that's really handy about getting little sewists some clips is that action is actually great for building those little fingers up and making them stronger and working on their fine motor skills. So it's really handy for that. And then when they're not sewing, they can use it to hold pieces of artwork together. You could string up a rope and then use it to clip pictures on the rope, or even when they're reading books, they can use it as a bookmark. So that's a really handy tool that's great for sewing, but other options as well. Now, one thing that I just learned about these clips is that they have a secret helping tool on them, and I'm going to show you what that is close up right now. So if we look at this sewing clip, you will notice that there's a flat end and a curved end. And they made the flat end clear, so you know that you always want on the bottom when you're sewing, because then it goes and glides on your sewing machine nice and smoothly and will move your fabric easily for you. But the one thing I want to show you is on the very bottom of the clear, you will see that there are these lines that go across. There's one here, and there's actually one that's kind of hard to see, but right there, and it kind of goes across where that metal part begins. And those are there because they're at specific seam allowance markings. Now, seam allowance is the space between where your stitches will be and the edge of the fabric. So if this was a piece of fabric and my stitches were right here, those were my stitches. From the stitches to the end of the fabric, that's our seam allowance. I'm going to show you that if I clip and I line it up to that first marking. That is actually at 5 millimeters, which is a 3/16 of an inch seam allowance. And then if I go to the next set of lines, that's a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then if I go all the way to that third one, which is a little hard to see, that's a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, which is about 1 centimeter. This is what most of our patterns have for a seam allowance. And then the last thing about this clip is if you ever have a pattern that's at a 1/2 inch, if you go right up to where that clip ends, like you put your clip right to the edge of the fabric, it's a 1/2 inch. So if you're new to learning how to measure, and especially with seam allowances, your clip is there to help you with those lines. So that is a sewing clip and some ways of how to use it. Let's take a look at our ambassadors, and they're going to show you how they like to use their clips.
This is how you use wonder clips instead of sharp pins. You put the fabrics on the right sides together, and then you use clips to put them together. And then you sew in the straight line. Finished.
Together. I like to use these clips because they are easy to clip. And what I do is I get one color to put where I'm in between where I'm not sewing, and another color where I am sewing.
I'm going to clip them on with these clips. So first I need 1, 2, 3, 4. And look at this one. It's already made.
Oh, you made it. Okay, so let's show them how you use your stuff, okay?
Okay, let's try. So here we go. We're going to clip 1. And then here's a purple one. Perfect. And here's another one. It's green.
Hi, I am using clips at the moment, and clips are good because they just hold it together nicely, and the pins, and I used to use pins, but I don't use them anymore. I use clips. And the funny thing, I have one purple clip in here, and one bad thing.
What's the bad thing?
The clips, whenever I pivot, they make a very terrible noise. So I decided I use this bucket to fix it.
Now it just makes a different noise.
It just makes a different noise.
I hope you learned something about using sewing clips while you are sewing. And as you were watching, you might have seen a bit of a sneak peek of something very exciting that we will be sharing tomorrow in our second day of December. It's a project that even the first-time sewist to the seasoned sewist will have a lot of fun creating. Please feel free to comment below and let us know what you're thinking of our videos and if you have any questions. And please tune in tomorrow to learn more.